Welcome back to Albany County Direct Podcast. I'm your host, County Executive Daniel McCoy. Today, we're discussing an issue that affects every community, but often remains hidden in plain sight: food insecurity. So joining me is Natasha, the Chief Executive Officer of the Food Pantries for the Capital District. Thank you for being here today. Do you want to explain a little bit about what you do? Because you do a lot, and I don't think people really understand what food pantries are, where they're at, how many we have, and how much it has affected people because of the high cost of food lately.
Sure. I'm happy to do that. So the Food Pantries for the Capital District is an organization that was formed in 1979 by Capital Area Council of Churches. And so we've been doing work for 47 years in Albany County. We work with the individual food pantries. So individual food pantries are around the community. Some of them are in church-based organizations. Some of them are in human services organizations, and the work that we do helps coordinate services. We were originally formed to help coordinate services as well as larger food drives. When we were formed, there was no food bank, so communities would do food drives, and we would help make sure that we were getting food to the places that need it most. We are most well known for our food distribution services. So each year we move millions of pounds of food from the food bank and deliver it directly to food pantry doors. And this is really a critical service because almost 50% of food pantries in our community are totally volunteer run. And I don't know if you've ever tried to put 1,000 pounds of food in a minivan. Minivans don't really like that. And so
No, they don't.
We really share resources together by operating our own fleet of box trucks and drivers. That way each pantry doesn't have to have their own large truck to move large quantities of food. So that's some of the work that we do collaboratively.
That's a nice way of saying it because, I appreciate you being on today, and you talked a little bit about the food pantries, the food bank, and I have another person that drives me crazy, Tom. You both do, and and it's two separate organizations, but you got the food bank that gets it the food in mass quantities, and then you buy your food from them, and then you get it out to the people on the street, so they get it to you or they directly get it out other ways, but. It's a network, and it's amazing that this is in the backyard, or I should just say in someone's backyard, all around the community, that really has an impact on people. And not many people want to come to a food pantry and say, hey, I need a loaf of bread, or I need some food for my house. And it's the hardest thing. And then you rely on not just private donations, you rely on volunteers, right? It's a big support network of your food pantries, correct?
Yeah, I mean, volunteers are really the heart of what we do. Even the pantries that do have paid staff rely on volunteers. One of the challenges for people in our community, you talked a little bit about dignity, and it can be really hard to ask for help. But when we look at food insecurity and how many people are being impacted, for anybody that is listening and is having a hard time making ends meet, I mean, we're living in an affordability crisis right now. When I did the numbers to come on today for Albany County specifically, 12% of Albany County residents visited our Coalition of Food Pantries last year. 12% of our population is not having enough resources to make ends meet. So it really is a systemic issue. It's an affordability problem. Obviously we've seen food inflation, and it's continuing to grow along with all the other costs of living, and wages are not keeping up. Some of the populations of people that we're seeing more and more of turning to food pantries for help, seeing a lot more working families. I was giving a presentation about, our work at a corporation, and the woman who had greeted me at the door came up afterwards and said, thank you so much for sharing this information, for everything you do. She said, my husband and I both work, but we have kids, and she's like, we wouldn't be able to make ends meet without going to a food pantry once a month to help us out. We're also seeing an increase in older adults turning to food pantries, people who have been living off of fixed incomes for a long time, just not able to keep up. And I think some people, there's a misconception about what is a food pantry. It's not an income based. So there are some people who might make $10 a month too much to receive SNAP benefits. You can get food from a food pantry. It's groceries.
I'm glad you brought that up because,
Yeah.
I mean, like people don't realize it. Even when you see somebody who has a decent job and they're making money, they don't realize the bills they're paying, whether it's their student loans. And I've talked to a lot of couples or individuals, and they're like, "Yeah, I might make 80 grand a year, but my student loan debt is crushing me. I'm paying $800 a month for that. Then they got to pay for apartments, which are outrageous. Like you said, the cost of everything's going up. Your electric bill goes up, your cable bill, your insurance, it goes up every year. It doesn't go down. They don't come and say, "Hey, you're a good customer, so we're not going to raise your utility rates," right? We know we're fighting that front too, right? With the new laws passed by the state that's affecting everybody. And it gets to a point where, do I pay the rent or do I put food on the table? And this really helps a lot of people. And I hope listeners listen to this, because I was on a podcast years ago, and they just got done with Senator Breslin at the time. They said, "Hey, county executive, we want you to take the 30-day challenge." Neil Breslin took it. Live on like you're on welfare. And I go, "No." I go, "No hell." I go, "No way in hell." And they're going, "You're refusing us?" I go, "Yes," because I don't have to pretend. I said, I had food stamps when I grew up. I know what the system means to people. I know what it means to have to go and look for help when you don't want to. It's hard. It's hard on people. People have pride, and the last thing they want to do is come in your food pantry. They don't want to run into somebody they know because they get embarrassed. And I used to help out with different food pantries. Tom would drag me here and there, and I'd run into friends that I grew up with. And they see me, and it's not they don't want to see me in that setting because they're embarrassed, right? And they shouldn't. People shouldn't be, because you'd be surprised with the people that walk through your doors or other doors. And I see, just because it looks like everything's going well doesn't mean it, because it gets to the point that you're saying the cost of everything's going up. They need this help. So if anyone takes anything away from this, the listeners or anyone out there, donate to the food pantries, volunteer, and have an understanding why this is so necessary. And it's been, I wish someday we could do this and say we don't need food pantries, but I don't think that's ever going to happen, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I agree with you. I have to say that food insecurity has been increasing drastically the past couple of years, and I pulled some stats on food insecurity, and it was good to see that we've been through this before and we will get out of it, but right now we're in the middle of it, and it really is a food insecurity crisis, not just here in the county. It's really a national crisis at this point, especially with the changes in HR 1 to SNAP. We're still seeing how that's going to impact us all. More and more people are losing SNAP benefits. The value of the SNAP benefits are not keeping up with the economy, and and the cost shift to the states and to the counties is going to be an incredibly devastating situation. Honestly, I saw recently that Hawaii actually created a wealth tax and generated the revenue that they lost from the federal government to cover the SNAP loss. And I thought, well, that was a pretty smart solution, honestly. But here in New York, we'll have to see what happens.
Oh, I can tell you what happened. So it was what I said at my State of the County when our state delegation was there. I go, "Please don't pass the buck down to us. Make your hard decisions. Do what's right." Instead, I got an $800,000 bill for SNAP this October I have to pay, and they shifted the cost to the counties. And then the federal government gave a 15% penalty for error rate for DSS,
yes,
which the state today still won't tell us. I went through every agency. They won't tell us what our error rate is, and that's a $10 million bill I got to pay in October of 2027.
Well, and this is devastating across the state, and I don't know that I agree that this is the correct solution, but I think, so counties are dealing with it, the state is dealing with it. This is really a federal level, and you talked about how can community members help. They can donate direct dollars to local food pantries, volunteer, but advocacy. I think a lot of people don't realize how important advocacy is, especially at a time right now. Sometimes you might feel a little hopeless or helpless. You're like, I don't know how to help. And, the easiest way is help your local food pantry in your neighborhood. And you can find your local food pantry by going to the foodpantries.org and click Find Find Food Now. We have our Food Connect map. So whether you're looking for food or you're looking for an organization to help, you can find those local neighborhood community food pantries and resources. But the second piece is really advocating, and food is a human right. I mean, yes,
Right.
it's a basic need, but the United States is one of the only countries that does civilized. Can we even call ourselves a civilized country at this point? We don't recognize food as a human right, and that is not okay. We do have some legislation right now with the state to recognize food as a human right, and maybe that will help put some pressure on the state to take the burden off of counties, because then it would be onto the state to make sure people have enough food to eat.
No, I agree with you, and you brought up a couple good points. That we're waiting for the state, and we're going to send a letter out, because I said I'm done waiting for the state. People don't realize their SNAP benefits are coming to an end. They change the threshold of income, and it's going to affect a lot of people. Now, we've been saying to say, hey, can we get that letter out? Can we inform the people? Can we let them know? And supposedly we're going to do it. I go, you know what? I made a conscious decision. I go, we're mailing one out to all everyone on SNAP. We're letting them know. We're going to educate them, and I want to do an outreach campaign to make sure that they're aware of this situation and the work requirement coming up. But to get back on track, too, the American Rescue Plan Act, the funding to support the growth of existing programs that is critical to your charitable food systems in Albany County. How's that affected you?
As far as say that one, like the word
The American Rescue Plan Act,
yes.
the funding and support of growth.
Oh my gosh! So that was an incredible resource, and so when we applied for that, it was at a really critical point for us. During COVID, obviously, a lot of people were turning to food pantries, the layoffs, we had a great partnership with the county at that point to do home delivered groceries for people under quarantine, which was a very successful effort. But ARPA really helped us continue our support services to not only our food pantries, but also to community members. So some of the impact that has had just in Albany County, so for the 3 years of the ARPA program, our more than 30 food pantry coalition members here just in Albany County were visited almost 500,000 times.
Wow.
And every year there is enough groceries distributed for over a million meals. And so as I mentioned, it's 12% of people in Albany County, it's 38,000 people are turning to food pantries. So what that means is we were able to bolster our program to move food from the food bank to our individual pantries. We were able to get a bigger truck. We were able to get a truck with a lift gate, for anybody who knows about that. I'm just using the word lift gate. It makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean. And some people are like, we don't need this, and we can handle this, but it makes life so much easier.
Our
really
drivers are like, they've been pushing for this for years. The other thing, it really helped us bolster our New York Food Connect map. And our referral team here for Albany County, as well as increasing our home delivery capacity. So one of the challenges, I didn't realize this, we talk a lot about transportation barriers and people can't get to a food pantry. But we did a partnership with some professors who surveyed home delivered grocery guests.
Yep.
So we vet people to make sure, there's nobody else that can come to the pantry, they really can't get there. And there are so many people that are really homebound because of chronic health conditions, disabilities, injuries, and they don't have anybody that can go on their behalf. I think that social isolation, the realization that, yes, we know transportation is a barrier. We know hours of operation can be a barrier, but that's why our referral team can help people identify what pantries are open and when they're open. And you can also go to the Food Connect map at thefoodpantries.org.
And I know you put flyers out because as much as we are in the 21st century and every kid or adult now has a phone at their hands, how do people find out about it if they're not connected to the internet or they're not connected on social media?
Yeah, a lot of people find pantries through word of mouth. And we also, a lot of people find out about it through of our human service organizations. So we try to have good partnerships with caseworkers and other organizations that will let people know. So, sometimes we're on the radio. Doing things like this helps because I'm
Right.
sure you have an audience that's listening that might not be aware. But yeah, flyers and internet and working with partners in the community.
And I'm glad you said it's been unbelievable, the podcast taking off in the amount of the next generation people that listen to it, and they're really more in tune to a podcast and listen to what they want. It does make a difference. But when people hear the word hungry, they often think somewhere far away, but the reality is it's happening right here at home. So what does food insecurity look like in our region? And honestly, when you look at the roles on our who relies on food pantries and food assistance programs. And you touched on most of this, but can you give a quick, analysis on this?
Well, yeah, hungry. So we use the word food insecurity, and that means that people don't have access to or resources for enough nutritious food for a healthy and active life. So this looks like people who are working, not having enough food, so they're skipping breakfast, maybe they're drinking soda because it gives them sugar and caffeine to kind of make them feel like they have energy, but then their energy drops, right? So people are skipping meals, parents skipping meals to give their kids food. It looks like kids relying on school breakfast and lunch as the only food that they have during the day. And it's older adults not eating as well. One story that...
It reminds me of a story because when we did a data analytics on what you just said, and if you look in poorer communities or communities that are disadvantaged, they don't have regular grocery stores. They have corner stores, and they go in there, and these kids think food is getting a can of soup or macaroni and cheese, all high of bad stuff, soda. And, I was talking to a bunch of county executives, and I hate to give this guy credit, but Steve McLaughlin's like, we should do Hello Fresh, and I'm like, because I was talking about how we get it at our house every now and then because you can put meals together, you cook as a family. And we're like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. People should be able to go order their food for the month, do it through DSS. And I got to tell you, we couldn't do it. We tried. And I'm like, this makes sense. Let people pick what food they want for the week, and they can do it as a family. All the ingredients are there.
I would love to circle back with you around that because it is a great idea. But what we at least can do is home-delivered groceries from pantries. And some pantries have the capacity to do choice. So when someone's ordering their grocery package for the month, it's like, do you want chicken or beef? Do you like cereal or pancake mix? There is some choice. Obviously, it's not as great as that. But, we have been able to expand. There's definitely still need for expansion in the home-delivered grocery aspect for people. But we're just we're continuing to see increases in who in our community needs to use a food pantry.
And again, I know these questions kind of all wrap into each other, but what particular populations you seen struggle more than others, such as families, seniors, veterans, or working adults? And with our veterans, they're entitled to different benefits. So we put a veterans person that identifies other veterans that go through our DSS because there's other federal programs they can get into to get more money on top. Yeah. So but if you could break that down a little bit.
So food insecurity numbers in New York State, it's 1 in 7 adults and 1 in 5 children struggle with food insecurity. And the populations that have higher food insecurity than that are people of color, people with families, like with children, and I cannot remember that. Oh, sorry, it's rural.
Yeah.
So Albany County has urban and rural, right? And
we have over 400 farms in our Hilltown community. People don't even realize that.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, pantries, we're trying to encourage and provide funding opportunities for pantries to do more direct purchasing from farmers. When we've surveyed people who visit food pantries, the items that they need and want the most, number one is meat, because
Yeah.
meat is expensive. And after that, it's dairy and fresh produce and fruits and vegetables. So I think there's a lot of opportunity within the county, but those are the populations: people of color, people with children, and people in rural communities have higher food insecurity.
Which, some of the numbers in Albany County, which you provided, from 2024 to 2025 was, we had, we went up a little bit, not as much as I thought, but you look at Rensselaer County went from 101,000 to 120,000. Saratoga from 92 went down a little bit. Schenectady County went from 80 to 95,000 people being served. And these numbers are staggering because, again, the cost of everything's going up. And it's what you're saying. Do they get meat for the day, or they get cereal and other stuff, knowing that it's going to keep the kids full, but it's not the healthier choice? And these are questions parents are making when they go to the food pantries or they go from DSS and they go to the grocery store. And it gets back to what you were saying earlier. It is a human right. We should make sure people have food. We're one of the best countries in the world, good, bad, and indifferent. There's things everyone can argue about, but we're still better off than most countries. But we need to do better. And, when everyone's talking about the lobbyists, and it's like that double-edged sword. Do you hire a lobbyist to fight for you? You don't hire lobbyists. What's the difference in outcome? Because if you're not in that game and you're not up there advocating for this stuff, it falls through the cracks, right? And I know you probably wanted a lot of stuff done this year in this session. I know I sure as hell did. But, and we're up there advocating, arguing, trying to get our point across, and it falls through.
Well, that's one of the big lessons. We've started our advocacy efforts through the Alliance for a Hunger-Free New York. And so that is a statewide organization that works with frontline food providers across the state. And when we're talking about the affordability crisis and the big picture and how do we solve this, it really, we got in the position where we are right now as a society in the 1980s when the tax laws changed and wealth taxes decreased significantly, and that's when a lot of human services programs were starting to be defunded. So that was in the 1980s. Then you look at 2000.
And this is nothing new.
Well,
so it doesn't matter what president it is; they all change it. They think they're, my.
Well, but you talked about lobbying.
I want to say this nicely.
Okay.
As nice as I can about politicians like myself.
You were a politician.
I know. I said
Let's see how nice you are about yourself.
We have the right intentions at times, but sometimes we need to talk to people like you and the lawmakers do, and saying what works doesn't work, not because we're friends or we have relationships. We have an obligation to go out and broadly look at the issue, saying how can we support and help you? And I see so many people with the right intention to change a law or change a program, and they don't know the ripple effect it's going to have on. And then the workers are like, well, I can't say anything. They changed the law. This is what they wanted. And I'm like, no, you have. I always say to my commissioners, you have to stand up. Just because we have the right intention and it's failing, you got to let us know, or saying, hey, this isn't going to work. This was tried before. Or here's a way that can make a difference, that we can get more food on the table, or here's how you can help better. People need to speak up in a respectful way. And again, like I say, a lot of politicians have the right intentions, but we're looking for the bigger picture. Oh, I'm going to get a good press conference out of this. Oh, I get to drop a check. And that's great. And you're standing there going, yeah, I appreciate the check, but I really needed something else.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say, we've got our leaders of the food pantries together, and the number one thing they are asking for is funding, because our dollars can go a lot farther paying for food. And so when you looked at the service numbers, it was pretty flat in Albany County. But I want to note that the number of people coming to food pantries has increased, the unique number of individuals. So that means the people who are going might not be going quite as frequently, because that number is pretty flat. But the number of individuals and households has increased. So that means more households and more individuals are struggling. So I wanted to note that because we have a data system that does track unique individuals. And so we can see, how many individuals, how many households, what are the ages, how many pantries do people have to go to get their food needs met. And it really, I go to multiple grocery stores because certain stores have different brands, and I have some kids with different dietary needs. People who don't have resources deserve the same dignity of choice and making sure that they're getting things that are culturally responsive, they know how to make. I mean, my grandparents back in the day, we used to get a food box, and it was like, you get what you get. And there's not dignity in that. And one of my greatest fears is that we're kind of getting back to this you get what you get mentality.
Right.
And because the resources aren't there. I mean, we have pantries right now struggling to get meat because the supply chain, it ebbs and flows. And sometimes things are available at the food bank and sometimes they're not. And we have made such progress in the state because of the state funding through Hunger Prevention Nutrition Assistance Program that has really supported pantries in providing food based on the My Plate model and having proteins and fruits and vegetables and grains. But it's been becoming increasingly more challenging for pantries to have the variety and the choice and the culturally responsive foods that we've been working for a couple decades to bolster, because we recognize it's a systemic issue, and we people deserve more than you get what you get. You'll eat whatever's in the box. We know that is not the right way to do this, not in this great nation.
It brings me, and I'm going to say this as nice as I can, so I end up in this tabloid again. But my problem is I see all these protests, and that's what I love about this country. You can agree to disagree. You have the right to protest. That's what the fundamental foundation of this country is. People don't realize I've been in the military 37 years. I've been all over the world, and I can assure you people look at certain officials the wrong way. They're thrown away forever. But I would love to see people come out and put the front line in the national media, talk about the food insecurity. We talk about everything except, okay, I get it. They're worthy causes. So I'm not taking away from that. So I want to clarify this so I don't end up in this tabloid. But I would love to see people rally for food insecurity, like, have demonstrations all over the country and put it on the front line and make the reporters and make the national news write about it. And because it could make a difference, it would have an impact more on people and the same people are protesting for or different organizations. It will help people. And we don't. It's like one of them.
Well, we do it. No, I'm going to invite you next time so you know about it. But
that's what I'm saying. You don't even hear about it because they're like, they're just fighting over food insecurity again. That's the point that I'm saying, right? I know there's some rallies out there, but I would love to see thousands of people storm the Capitol and saying, hey, look, sometimes that's the only way you wake up these people like me, politicians, and say, hey, look, you know what? You have to address this issue. I watched the budget. I seen some things you were fighting for. I knew stuff Tom Nardachi was fighting for, and it fell through the cracks. And I'm sitting there going, wait, this is, like you said, this needs support. This has an impact on their constituents. It has an impact on whether they got meat on the table or whether they got a bowl of cereal.
There are several really good things that came out of the state budget. HIPNAP moved up to $72.8 million. That's the Hunger Prevention Nutrition Assistance Program. We've been asking for $75 million for 3 years. So, we also saw the change for SNAP EBT card transition to smart chips. In California, that decreased SNAP skimming by 80%. So that means people were getting their SNAP benefits skimmed and stolen, and there was no recourse. So there's a couple of good things that happened, but we have a long ways to go. And I'm going to invite you to join us next time, because I have never seen a stronger collaborative anti-hunger advocacy effort here in New York.
Maybe they'll write about it. Maybe they'll put it on the paper front page.
You're going to get involved. Watch out. You're going to get
Listen, Tom's
involved.
tried too. And I'm glad you said that about California, because they got a lot of issues with California, but we got our own state to worry about, right? And my own county, and that's my focus as county executive. But you bring up some excellent points, and people don't realize we have welfare fraud investigators, and we go after people. And Sheriff Apple and I, in the beginning, our first round, when we first both got elected, we do a press conference. And ironically, the next day, they qualified for the services they were stealing because they lost everything, right? And we're like, what's this? It's like we're chasing our tail, right? And it's the same thing that these mom and pop stores, I'll say, around the community, people go in there, and we've caught them, and they're only allowed to buy certain food items, and they'll buy cigarettes and beer, and they charge another way, and they walk away with the rest of the money on the card, and they, it's hard, and it's the mentality of some people too, and saying, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to get food, I'm going to buy cigarettes, beer.
But the lesson in that is that the vast majority of people are not doing that.
No,
So
I'm
these
saying
are
there
incredible
are
programs. But I think
they are. I'm not taking away from the program.
But you're just saying it's important to solve. I think at the end of the day, for listeners out there today, if you're a person who's feeling like I'd like to do something, I'd like to get involved, we really encourage people to support their neighborhood food pantries, that you can make the biggest, most immediate difference. And again, you can find them at thefoodpantries.org. Click Find Help here, and you'll find food pantries and community meals. And that is also the same for people who are really struggling to make ends meet. If you're needing help with food assistance, take a look at the Food Connect map, and you will at least piece together the resources that are there for yourself so that you have food on the table tonight, while we work on the bigger picture advocacy and trying to push on policy and investments so that we can make system change for our community.
No, I'm glad. And honestly, you pretty much wrapped it up in the support of local pantries, the dollars, donations, volunteers, you have all in there. Your final pitch to everyone out there, where can they go? Like, what website can they go to? You put it out there, but is there, is it foodpantries.com?
Thefoodpantries.org. That you can find your local food pantries. You can learn more about us. You can get involved to volunteer. And if you're a person who'd like to get more in the advocacy side of things, Alliance for a Hunger-Free New York is our sister organization that's working on policy. So we would love to have more people join us in that fight as well.
And before I wrap it up, you gave me a neat little flyer. Help is closer than you think. Search thousands of food banks, resources throughout New York State, and it has a little QR code on there so you can find out where they're at. These are the things I love to see around the community. It should be in all our county buildings. It should be all over the place, so people can just see it and say, "Oh my God, if I need food," or just
good thing I brought a stack with me.
I know. I knew I was going to regret saying that.
I brought a stack of these flyers.
I compliment the work that you do day in, day out in getting the message out there and helping people. Volunteers, what's that look like for you? Are your numbers up, down, or people helping out?
Yeah, one of the things, we have a lot of groups that want group volunteer, like one and done kind of events.
Yeah.
And what pantries really, really need, besides that, those can be great, but dedicated volunteers that really want to be a part of the team and come on a regular basis and learn, essentially volunteer staff. If you are someone who would like to really invest their time and join this incredible community of people who are making a difference, you can go to our website, thefoodpantries.org, and we can help place you in a food pantry or at our organization as well to support, home-delivered groceries, unpacking boxes. There's all kinds of things that you can do if you're looking to get involved in the community.
Well, thank you for joining us for and especially for all the work you and your team do to support our neighbors in need. That's huge. And thanks to everyone listening. Be sure to check out other episodes on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks for listening to Albany County Direct.